rural America is on edge. What was supposed to be an economic relief plan has instead become a source of anger and uncertainty. The Trump administration announces a $12,000 million aid package intended to compensate farmers affected by falling prices and trade tensions. But far from calming the crisis, the measure ignites a political and social storm now spreading through the heart of the rural United States. Thousands of producers accuse the administration of offering superficial solutions to a far deeper structural problem. The prevailing sentiment is that Washington does not grasp the magnitude of the crisis hitting agricultural communities. From the Midwest to Texas, the testimonies echo the same frustration. Farmers who have worked the land for generations now face negative margins, rising debt and closed markets caused by the government's own trade policies. The promised aid, they say, barely covers a fraction of the losses. Some producers speak of a gap of more than $30,000 million between what the government promises and what is actually needed to sustain the sector. And while the money arrives late, or does not arrive at all, harvests rot in silos, prices fall and debts mount. At the root of the problem lies the explosive combination of two factors: the tariffs Trump imposes on key exporting countries and the inflation-driven surge in production costs. For months, the administration has defended those tariffs as a tool to protect domestic industry and pressure powers like China, but the result in the agricultural sector has been devastating. Agricultural exports, especially soy and corn, have plummeted, wiping out thousands of millions in revenue. International markets adjust quickly, redirecting purchases toward Brazil, Argentina, and Australia. The United States loses ground it will not easily regain. To this, an increasingly extreme climate adds even more pressure. Prolonged droughts, California wildfires, and unseasonal storms reduce yields in regions once highly productive. Agricultural insurance cannot cover total losses, and banks, fearful of instability, tighten credit conditions. For many producers, keeping their machinery running has become a month-to-month struggle. The American dream of the countryside, built on self-reliance and hard work, fades in the face of an economic landscape that offers no respite. The political response is anything but clear. The White House insists the aid will arrive soon and will directly benefit those who need it most. Yet rural associations argue that most funds flow to large agribusiness corporations, leaving small and mid-sized farmers almost entirely out of the equation. In agricultural counties, that perception of abandonment fuels a growing anger, now visible even among former Republican loyalists. Speeches that once praised the administration's strength now turn into accusations of betrayal. Meanwhile, the secondary effects of this crisis ripple across the economy. Grain transportation by rail and road drops sharply. Fertilizer and machinery companies cut staff. Rural cooperatives close. And in small towns, local businesses, from hardware stores to restaurants, feel the direct blow of declining purchasing power among farming families. Every farm that collapses takes down a small economic ecosystem with it. Economists warn that Trump's trade policy generates a double negative impact. It raises production costs through tariffs on imported inputs, while limiting exports because of retaliatory measures imposed by other countries. The result is a trap hitting the productive core of the United States. In the past, farmers were considered a reliable electoral base for the Republican Party. Today, in the agricultural states of the Corn Belt, discontent spreads across fairs, auctions, and cooperatives. Many producers say this is the first time in decades they seriously question their vote. The situation worsens because expectations were not low. Trump had promised to save American farmers with policies that would restore prosperity to domestic producers. But in practice, the measures adopted are producing the opposite effect. By intervening in markets and igniting a prolonged trade war, the administration triggers a collapse in agricultural prices that hits small producers directly. The $12,000 million in aid is presented as a patriotic gesture. But for farmers facing losses of more than $30,000 million, it feels more like an electoral patch than a real solution. Some analysts say the government is underestimating the social impact of this crisis. Suicides in rural areas rise. Farmers' mental health reaches critical levels. More families abandon the countryside in search of urban employment. Agricultural universities and producer associations warn of a concerning trend: the disappearance of the independent farmer, replaced by large corporations or investment funds buying cheap land from those who can no longer pay their debts. The United States, a country built on the promise of family-owned land, is now witnessing that promise crumble before its eyes. Despite everything, the White House continues insisting that farmers must be patient. But time is running out. Production cycles do not wait, and debts do not either. Every lost season means thousands of millions in losses and hundreds of families on the edge of financial collapse. Agricultural unions, historically aligned with the Republican government, begin to speak out. They do not ask for charity. They ask for clear rules, stability, and policies that encourage production instead of suffocating it. Some Republican governors in the Midwest already distance themselves from the official narrative. They acknowledge that the tariff measures have had a devastating impact on their local economies and call for an urgent federal review of trade policy. But in Washington, the priorities appear different. The president continues defending his strategy as a reconstruction of economic sovereignty. Yet for farmers losing their livelihoods, those words ring hollow. The rural crisis is far more than a sectoral problem. It reflects an economic model that has shown cracks for years. Dependence on external markets, speculation on food prices, and the absence of long-term policy are eroding one of the historical pillars of the United States. In practice, producers face a cruel paradox. They work more than ever, produce more than ever, yet earn less than ever. And the question hanging over this entire scenario is unavoidable. How much longer can the country sustain a policy that punishes the very people who feed its population? Rural America is not asking for privileges. It is asking for predictability. And if the government does not react in time, the political and social cost could be far higher than anything an aid package can repair. Like and subscribe to Critical Point to understand how power reshapes the world.